Well, hi there, it's Jennifer. Welcome to my channel. This is video 6 in a series where I have been documenting myself using the 10 glucose hacks from author and biochemist Jessie Inchauspe. And I put myself on this challenge because in November of 2024, I was back in the pre-diabetic A1C number range. Also, I had the highest fasting glucose levels in the past 5 years. So that was a wake-up call for me. I am working on changing my lifestyle habits. And really, as I've begun documenting myself in creating this playlist, hoping that it would help be an accountability partner, if you will, to myself. I'm hoping that through the community, we can encourage each other, because I know that I am not alone in working on managing health. It is a lifelong journey managing our bodies because of all of the different stages that we go through, and we deal with different types of issues. It could be temporary illnesses to chronic illnesses, hormonal changes. I am a menopausal woman. I think I'm officially in menopause. I'm really not quite sure, but with my plummeting hormones, it has just dramatically changed my body over the last decade specifically. Now, in today's video, we are going to be talking about the hack from both of Jessie's books. The Glucose Revolution goes into detail about the 10 glucose hacks. The Glucose Goddess method gives abbreviated descriptions of 4 of her main hacks with a whole bunch of recipes. I'm going to be reading and working out of both of those books for this video. We are doing the veggie starter hack. Now, part of the veggie starter hack, believe it or not, does include beans and legumes in pulses because of their fiber content. Now, I am prepping for a recipe here called Caribbean black beans. Later on at the end of the video, I will show you that recipe in full. Right now, I'm just prepping these dried beans, cleaning them. I'm getting ready to put them in the Instapot. Once the beans are all prepped and cooking in the Instapot, I am going to be working on a veggie starter. I'm going to be prepping my breakfast. I am going to start with an egg omelet, but this time, instead of cooking my vegetables in there, I am going to have my spinach off to the side. Normally, I love to have my spinach in my omelet, but this time around, I thought that I would do the veggie starter. Jessie often suggests in her books to go ahead and combine the hacks. I am going to be combining the vinegar hack with the veggie starter. I'm going to get into the Glucose Goddess method book, and I'm going to prepare one of her vinaigrette dressings, which sounded really delicious. And of course, you can have the veggie starter at the beginning of any meal. In her community, in the Glucose Goddess Method book, a lot of people will give tips and advice. Some people prefer to have theirs first thing in the morning. That way they get that hack in. But you can have your veggie starter at the start of any meal. And the reason why the veggie starter is so important is because of the fiber content. I'm going to read to you a couple of excerpts, but one in particularly is the science behind why a veggie starter is so important. And she says it is because of fiber. And I'm reading out of the Glucose Goddess Method book. Here is the science behind why fiber is so important. Jessie says that fiber is a plant-made substance found abundantly in vegetables. While it is helpful to incorporate fiber in our diet at any time, when eaten at the beginning of a meal, which is why it's called the veggie starter, this particular hack, it has a particularly powerful impact on our glucose levels. She goes on to say, when fiber arrives in our upper intestines before other foods, it performs an amazing transformation. It deploys itself against the walls of our intestines, forming a viscous, protective mesh that stays in place for a few hours. This mesh then reduces the absorption of any glucose molecules that make their way into our digestive system during the rest of the meal. In this way, it reduces the speed and velocity at which glucose arrives into our bloodstream and reduces the glucose spike of the meal. The benefits of fiber are endless. Jessie goes on to say in her Glucose Revolution book that it fuels the good bacteria in our gut, strengthens our microbiome, lowers our cholesterol levels, and makes sure everything runs smoothly. One of the reasons she goes on to say that a diet high in fruit and vegetables is healthy is because of the fiber it provides. What I really appreciate in Jessie's Glucose Revolution book is she will show graphs of food eaten not using the hacks, then foods eaten with the hacks by measuring people who had continuous glucose monitors on them. And the impact that following these hacks makes on the glucose spikes afterwards is really pretty impressive. Now that these beans are in the Instapot, we are going to move over now into the Glucose Goddess Method book, and I'm going to prepare that dressing. I am going to be picking a recipe from the Glucose Goddess Method for today's breakfast. I'm going to have my savory breakfast of eggs. I'm going to do my 3/4 cup of egg whites. I'm going to have 2 whole eggs. I'm going to have a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese that I'm going to split between my omelet and then a handful of baby spinach. I'm going to go ahead and try. I'm assuming that this one must be the oregano. This one might be the oregano dressing, but I thought this sounded really good. I figured I would try the vinegar hack in a vinaigrette. This has all the ingredients of things that I would like, so let's go ahead and get it whipped up and then see how it tastes. Jessie often talks about combining habits, and for this particular breakfast, I am combining 3 of the Glucose Goddess Method hacks. Number 1, I'm having a savory breakfast. Number 2, I am having a veggie starter, which I am going to be reading a little more here out of both of her books as we go on in this video. I am going to be jumping in here in a little bit because I'm going to be talking about stress. Then we're going to prep for the Caribbean black bean meal, and I will continue to read out of Jessie's book. But I am stacking habits. So we've got savory breakfast, we've got veggie starter, and we're doing the vinegar hack as well. So just in this breakfast, there are 3 hacks. Of course, I have to show you my Star Wars porg tattoos to go along with those adorable Star Wars porg salt and pepper shakers. I love those things. They bring me joy. And I'm going to talk about stress and the things in your home that bring you joy versus the things in your home that bring you stress. But I'm going to read to you a little more from the Glucose Revolution about fiber. I personally found it really fascinating about fiber, how it forms that viscous mesh that sticks to the small intestinal lining. I did not know that. I always thought, well, I knew fiber was good because it helps keep you regular. I did know that it was good to feed your gut microbiome. It has been fascinating to go through these books and learn these types of things. Jessie goes on to say, in addition to that viscous fiber mesh, that fiber also reduces the action of alpha amylase, the enzyme that breaks starch down into glucose molecules. And then she says fiber also slows down gastric emptying. Jessie goes on to say, the amount of fiber we eat these days is much lower than what we should be eating. Only 5% of Americans meet the recommended daily amount of 25 grams per day. I am learning quite a bit going through Jessie's books. It's been rather fascinating. In the Glucose Revolution book, there is a question, and the question is, how much time do I need to wait between the starter, that veggie starter, and the main dish? She says, you don't need to wait at all. You can eat them in sequence. Jessie goes on to say that if you do wait, try not to wait more than a couple of hours between your green starter and the rest of your meal. That's because 2 hours is around the time it takes for fiber to go through our stomach and the top part of our small intestines. She says, for example, if you have a salad at noon and then rice at 1 p.m., the fiber from the salad will still help flatten the rice's spike. But if you have a salad at noon and rice at 3 p.m., the salad won't help flatten the spike from the rice anymore. This dressing was quite delicious, but what I ended up having to do was, because I didn't have a jar, the recipe suggests that you put that mixture in a jar and really shake it good, but I did not have a jar like that. So you saw there I was trying to whisk it. I ended up needing to break out the immersion blender to really incorporate it. Doing the whisk, it just wanted to separate. Also, I did have to let it sit for a while. I think next time, if I was to do this again, I would make it the night before. That way it has a lot of time to incorporate. For this breakfast, I am having my eggs pretty much plain Jane. Normally, I like to saute onions and peppers or mushrooms or even the spinach, but this time around, I'm just doing the 3/4 cups of the egg whites, and that's 20 grams of protein. I have the 2 full eggs in there, and it's about, I think it's 12.6 grams of protein. I am also going to be adding a total of 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and then I split it between my veggie dish there and the eggs. I did 1/8 of a cup in my eggs with sriracha. Then I added 1/8 of a cup of the Parmesan cheese to the veggie starter. That is something that Jessie says. She says you can add fat and protein to your veggie starter. That's absolutely acceptable, so you can add a lot of flavor. Now with my handful of baby spinach, it's about 2 handfuls, which is a serving. I am adding the 1/8 of a cup of Parmesan cheese, and the dressing will have 3 tablespoons of olive oil, which I did think was quite a bit. I'm like, boy, that seems like a lot of olive oil. That dressing is meant to be divided in 2. It has 6 tablespoons of olive oil. So I did use the entire serving. I tried it just to try it. It was delicious, especially once it had time to set up, and then I used the immersion blender to really mix everything. It was very, very delicious. It was a lot of olive oil, very calorific, but this savory breakfast did keep me full for hours, which is also a way to know that you have done your breakfast right. And here I am getting ready to measure out those 3 tablespoons. And Jessie says that anything qualifies as a veggie starter to include beans. So you can have whatever you fancy, whatever type of vegetables that you fancy. And she says you can have them raw, you can have them cooked. Also, part of my food prep with the beans is to have those in my refrigerator so I can add them to my mornings as my fiber starter, my bean/veggie starter. And you can see it looks really, really good. Now, I'm a spinach lover. I love spinach. I know some people do not like spinach. My husband just does not like the feel of it on his teeth. All right, I am gonna jump in and talk about stress. This health journey has brought a lot of different aspects of overall wellness to the forefront of my mind. And then later on in the video, we'll jump back to the Caribbean bean recipe. As I continue on with this journey of working on lowering my A1C and my fasting glucose and documenting it specifically here, it's really been helpful because it has also caused me to look at other areas of my life where I do need to work on that will help my body to be at its best, specifically in lowering stress. One is bringing balance into my life. I just did a video here on my channel where I was talking about the need to bring balance into my schedule specifically. I had a way that I did my life, if you will, my schedule that served me wonderfully well in my past, but I am in this midlife transition and I have yet to really get my feet anchored on the ground. I don't know why it is that way. I did start a YouTube channel that's been very, very new, very steep learning curve, something that I have never done before. It's been an all-encompassing experience. Then also going through empty nesting and my home life changing so much. And my feet are not firmly anchored on the ground as far as what my schedule should be at this stage of my life. And sometimes I think I'm good. This is my birthday month. I'm going to be 54 years old. You know, I should be a master at this. But you know, for some strange reason, I think because I've been so YouTube focused, I've been so busy and focused on learning how to do YouTube that I've just put everything else to the side that already really needed to be tended to. Well, that just builds stress. As I go day to day, and if I'm executing my day less effectively than what I would like and in a way that I feel good about, that just brings stress and overwhelm. And then maybe I feel like I've let myself down because I didn't do all the things that I wanted to do. This past week, I've been watching different ways of cleaning the home. Have you heard of the Fly Lady? I've only heard people talk about the Fly Lady and the Fly Lady system. I don't know. I need to learn more about it, but I need to get a house schedule down for cleaning this home. I used to have a ton of help, but now it is up to me, which is not a problem. I love cleaning, but I need to get on a better schedule so that the areas in my home are to my standards, if that makes sense. I am also living in a home that is being remodeled. I have so many projects that need my attention, but because I have been so in on YouTube, then, like last year, it was my daughter was getting married, and then we were all in on that. And there's always these excuses. I tend to be somebody who'll let other things distract me. And I need to bring balance back into my life so that I am tending to all of those different categories, so that I'm managing my home in its cleanliness and organization in the way that I enjoy and feel that it's beneficial and works. I have got this front door project that is something that I need to be working on. This whole entire home is under one massive remodeling project that my family and I have been working on over the years. And there are a lot of projects that are screaming my name. I heard this really great, quick little short with John Deloney. I don't know if you've ever seen John Deloney. He's here on YouTube. He is part of the Dave Ramsey universe. He has a YouTube channel, The John Deloney Show. People call in with all kinds of different issues. Well, anyway, there was a short that I saw, and I wish I would have saved it. He was being interviewed by somebody, but John Deloney was saying that the items in your home talk to you. And he said some items are screaming at you, and that can cause stress. My front door, every time I go up and down my front door, I am looking at an unfinished project. I need to get my schedule in order so that I can work on, also, in addition to YouTube and my family and all those other important parts of life, my health, I need to bring balance so that I am also working on projects like my front door that move the needle forward in this home remodeling project, because every time I go by it, it's a reminder that I have not done anything with it, and that brings stress. Another example is I have a painting. I have this painting of a white raven that was here in my city last year. And I hired a wonderful artist. She did a beautiful painting for me. I have had the full intention of getting it professionally framed. I haven't done it yet. I can't remember when it was. It was probably several months ago. I was like, oh, honey, I'm going to go take that painting to Michael's. I'm going to go get it framed. He put it in a big bag for me, brought it out to the truck. I can't even remember what exactly happened, but I never made it to Michael's. It was in the truck, safe in a bag, but it was in the truck for a couple of days. And now it's just back in my room. It's still in the bag, waiting to go to Michael's. That is something that's screaming at me. That brings an element of stress. I have also some organizational projects that I really need to work on. I love cleanliness and order. I really do enjoy it, but I do have areas, like I'm not a perfectionist by any means. I do love cleanliness. I do love order, but this home gets lived in. There are areas that get messy. Like I might organize a drawer, and honestly, 4 months down the road, it could just be completely a disaster and need to be reorganized again. You know how that is. I think most of us are that way, although there are some people who are really, really good at keeping things organized all of the time. I have got my closet that I've just been really unhappy with my closet lately. Once again, I'm also in this like weird transition with the clothing in my closet where I'm just not loving anything. It is just kind of a mess. I also have a whole bunch of things in there that I stored in there that I need to go through and organize. Some things I need to sell, some things I need to keep, some things are photos. But every time that I walk into my closet, that's something that's screaming at me. My pantry, which is back in there, it needs a massive overhaul. It needs to be completely emptied out and completely redone. And it just has been a project, honestly, that I probably needed to do 6 months ago. And it's not gotten any better. That's something that's screaming at me. So every time I go into the pantry, I am reminded of a project that I need to work on. And that brings an element of stress. It's like everywhere that you look, if you have something that is screaming at you, and not in a great way, not like, oh, look how beautiful I am right here. Like, I'll have to tell you one day the story of this painting, how that actually, it's a print. It's not the original. How this print came into my life. It's pretty special. That brings me joy. I have got mushrooms. I'm right by my bay window. I've got these teak wooden mushrooms right here that I absolutely love. They bring me joy. I love Turkish chandeliers in my home. That brings me joy. I'm looking at the stained glass bee window that I have right here, and that brings me joy. But when I walk into my closet, it's stress. When I see my unfinished projects in the home with the remodeling, that brings stress. So part of health is taking care of the whole person, right? But it also is dealing with the other areas of life that are causing you stress. So that's something that I'm really going to be working on. Another area is sleep. And I'll go into that a little more actually next week, because we're getting a little bit long in this video. Because next week, I want to tell you about this amazing appointment that I had with my gynecologist. Now, she treats the whole body. I mean, the entire health. She has referred me to a dietitian who specializes in people with food intolerances, digestive issues, and allergies. And she said, my gynecologist said, she will probably put you on a continuous glucose monitor. I am going to be reaching out to her and embarking on that journey. I want to tell you all about that. I am going to be starting progesterone because I want to talk about sleep. I am on HRT. I've been on oral estradiol for a while because my sleep was absolutely horrible. Well, in the past 6 months, I've noticed that my sleep has really been impacted lately. I had such a productive appointment with my gynecologist. I love this lady. She is incredible. She's so wonderful. And she suggested that I get on progesterone, and that is supposed to help with sleep. So I've got to pick that up at the pharmacy, but I'll save all of that for next week's video. I will go ahead and be reading from Jessie's books as we embark on the cooking portion of this video. And as you embark on your own health journey, think about those areas in your life that could be causing you stress. You know, is it your sleep? Or is it something in your environment that you know you need to tend to and you just haven't gotten around to it? And every time you look at it, it's just a reminder. That's what I'm going to be working on. I look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll continue on with the cooking portion. All right, bye-bye. Now it's time to prepare Caribbean black beans. This week's goal is to have 1 veggie starter per day. I would love to be able to get to the point where I have more than one, but I love that hack. And what I do appreciate about these hacks is they're very doable. Like you saw with that breakfast meal that I did, I was able to do 3 of those hacks. And Jessie talks about the importance, and I've discussed this in the previous videos, in the savory breakfast videos, which are videos 2 and 3, the importance of having a savory breakfast, because it sets you up for the day. If you end up having something that is starchy and sugary, and especially on an empty stomach, first thing in the morning, your body is so ready to absorb food that it will absorb that starch and sugar quicker, which will give you a higher spike and then a lower dip. And it just sets you up for cravings all throughout the day and fatigue. I am finding these glucose hacks very doable. When I gave myself a 30-day challenge in September of 2024 to do these hacks. I really enjoyed them. And now that I am embarking on this 13-week personal challenge, and honestly, I'm really looking to set myself up for life because I want to be healthy. I want to have energy. I do not want to have high blood sugar, insulin resistance, pre-diabetes. I mean, I've been struggling with these things now for years, and I want to have energy for my future. What I do appreciate about these hacks, and I can see why this is a global phenomenon. And remember, you can find Jessie. She's on Instagram. I'm mostly on YouTube, but you can find her here on YouTube, and she's lovely to listen to. She has a lot of energy, a lot of positivity. Of course, she has all the wisdom and knowledge, and she is the brain behind these books and these hacks, and so she's really fun to listen to. But what I love about these hacks is that they are customizable to you. You customize the savory breakfast that appeals to you. It could be whatever it works for you. If you remember, I talked about in video 5 about Dr. Chatterjee, how when he was working with a patient to lower his blood sugar levels, he was trying to get him to eat a savory breakfast. His suggestion to that gentleman was to double his dinner recipe. So you can do whatever works for you and create the savory breakfast that appeals to you personally. Same thing with the vinegar hack. You can pick whatever vinegar you want. Like, I've definitely experienced that. I love apple cider vinegar, and I can drink it in a very tall glass of plain water. I don't mind it. But when it came to the suggestion of sipping vinegar in sparkling water while you're cooking dinner, I found that the apple cider vinegar, I did not like it at all in the sparkling water. So I switched it to the white distilled vinegar, and you can play around with that. The same goes for the veggie starter. You can prepare whatever type of veggie starter that you love and that you enjoy. You can do it raw, you can do it cooked. You can have beans, pulses, or legumes because of their protein and fiber count. And black beans is a 33 on the glycemic index scale. Anything 55 and below is considered low for spiking your glucose levels. And this meal is very, very delicious. I have been eating it every day for my breakfast since I made it. Jessie says, how to know if you're doing your veggie starter right. She says, you'll know you're doing this hack properly if the veggie starter makes up 30% of your overall food quantity for that meal. She says, depending on the size of your meals, you can adjust the recipe portions to hit this goal. If you have some starter left over, for example, save it for the next day. Your veggie starters may take a little bit of prep, but making batches and keeping some raw veggies in your fridge for when you're on the go will help. And that's what I did with this bean recipe. This bean recipe my family loves. I have different family members that will put it in bean burritos with sriracha and sour cream. My son loves to take these beans and put them over pasta. I will put them over brown rice typically, or sometimes I'll just scoop out a serving. I'll usually do about a cup. If I'm not having these beans over rice, I'll do 1 cup. If I am having them over rice, I'll usually do a half a cup. It just depends on how hungry I am. Jessie says, do as much prep as you can in advance. Make big batches of veggies and keep them in the fridge the whole week. And I do have to say that food prepping is so helpful. It's helpful for your savory breakfast. Make sure, of course, you have your vinegars on hand or sparkling waters. And then same thing with your vegetables or beans. It's definitely something I like to do. For this particular hack in the Glucose Goddess Method book, in particularly, the goal is to have a veggie starter before at least one meal. She says, pick the meal in your day that is most convenient for you to add your veggie starter to. In the community, people are split on this almost equally. She said about 50% have their veggie starter before their lunch and about 50% before dinner. A handful of people have it before breakfast. And like I was saying earlier, I have become accustomed to having vegetables in the morning. Before, that would have been the strangest thing for me. I just wouldn't have done that. But now I absolutely love it. Jessie has a good tip in her book if you're somebody who's not used to eating vegetables. She says that you might experience bloating as your gut gets used to the new fiber. And her suggestion was, if that is the case, she says choose cooked vegetables instead of raw vegetables to begin with, because it might be easier on your system. Also, you can get digestive enzymes like little supplements. The brand name, there's like a brand name called Beano, if beans tend to upset your stomach. I have found, now I'm somebody who has a lot of allergies and food intolerances. I am learning to pay more attention and not just eat the things that I want to eat because I like them, but I am trying to pay attention to the impact that it's having on my body. But I find that if I really cook down black beans, and as long as I'm not having like 2 cupfuls of them, anywhere from a cup and below, which is plenty enough serving, it will not upset my stomach. Garbanzo beans lately have been making me feel really bloated and uncomfortable. Like, I'm also somebody who cannot eat kidney beans. So you do want to pay attention to your body, or at least just give yourself a little time to adjust and then see if you do indeed adjust. Now, I ended up preparing this meal. I've got 1 cup of my cooked brown jasmine rice, which is also low on the glycemic scale, and then 1 cup of black beans, and I will top this with sriracha. So it depends on what I'm eating, how much I eat it, but it was very, very delicious, and it is a family favorite. All right, well, we are coming to the end of this video. So I am going to be working on my veggie starter for at least 1 meal, my savory breakfast, and my vinegar hack. And I'm stacking habits. I'm food prepping. I am working on de-stressing. That is one of my biggest goals. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.